Welcome. My name is Sandra Perez, and tonight I have the distinct pleasure of hosting the Civic IQ show at the Portland Media Center. If you notice any mistakes, that's by design. Tonight's studio show is live, but we have students from the Boys and Girls Club that are running the show and producing the show. And that's really exciting. It's part of a series of classes where we have 6 different modules that they will be working through to produce a show from beginning to end. And as your host tonight, I will be able to have a conversation with our guest, Wes Pelletier, City Councilman for District 2 here in Portland, Maine. And at this time, I'd like to welcome Wes to our show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely, Wes. So it's been really nice just getting to know you here before the show. Can you please tell our audience tonight what you do as City Councilman?
Sure. So on City Councilor, it's an interesting role because it's not really defined. You have the powers that are defined, which is you sit on City Council, you're a vote on City Council, obviously, and then on a couple committees. I'm on Finance and Health and Human Services. But then it's sort of whatever you want to bring to the table. Some people they're very good at going to these meetings and sort of figuring things out. For me, a really important part is like the actual organizational aspect of it, where you are trying to connect people amongst the community. Because the one thing that City Council really gives you is people want to talk to you. They have a reason to talk to you. You can reach out to someone and say, hey, I'm on City Council. And they're like, a lot of the time they'll just be like, oh, okay, sure. And then you can sort of build those relationships and then move those relationships towards other people that are around and make sure that people are talking to each other and resources are being connected so that people are able to, benefit from those resources as a single entity rather than, having to go to different nodes.
That's really interesting. I'm realizing as you're explaining how little I know about your role, but let's try to break this down for our audience. So currently you are one of 7 city councilors?
Yep, so there's, it's 5 plus 2 plus 1. So there's 5 districts in Portland.
Right.
Then there are 2 at-large councilors, and then there's 1 mayor, so that's 8. And I am the city councilor for District 2, which is basically everything on the peninsula that's west of High Street, and then a little bit of Libbytown.
Oh, I see. Okay, so I'm just going to put myself out there. So we have 5 districts, and then at large means they oversee all of the districts?
Yeah, they are sort of it's almost like the same as the mayor, honestly, in terms of they get elected by the entire city.
Okay. Oh, I see. I understand. Yeah. And so what are first tell us how you came about becoming interested in even running for this role.
Sure. So I have been sort of interested in politics for my whole life, or at least since middle school, and became sort of involved in Portland politics after I moved into Portland about a decade ago. Sort of was around for a while and then was just sort of looking for a way to get involved, mostly because I was anxious about climate change and was I need to feel like I have any agency at all. And so became involved with the Democratic Socialists of America. We ran a number of referenda in 2020 and then 2022. And a big victory of that was rent control. And then we realized, to really be able to fully protect tenants, it would be good to have someone on City Council that can represent tenants and sort of make sure that the working class has a voice, which is hard because City Council doesn't pay that much. And so it's very hard to get people that work, that are connected, really closely to the working class and the workers in Portland and are familiar with that life. It's hard to make sure that those people are represented. So because I have the backing of a very working class organization, they are very good at holding me accountable and making sure that those needs and priorities are put first. And they are just in my ear, making sure that I'm doing the right thing.
So that's really interesting. What would you say are the top priorities or issues that the working class have voiced that you have had a chance to really focus on? Or I know it takes a while to sort through these.
Yeah, I mean, like the easy answer obviously is housing.
Okay.
In Portland, housing is just so hard. Rents have historically been going up very quickly since really the 2000s. And housing prices obviously are off the charts.
Through the roof.
And so one of those things that I have been focused on, since before I was in council, is how can we make sure that we are creating a Portland that the workers of Portland can still afford to live in? Because I really think that without the workers, we are not going to have a city that's desirable.
Right.
And it's really hurting a lot of families and a lot of folks because they're having to move out. So for me, that's been my top priority. And as soon as you get on council, there are so many things to be worried about, and you can't. It is not a magic wand. Even if there was just one mayor and there was no city council, there's so many different things to work on that you can't really say, well, we need to fix this. So it's working within those systems. It's dealing with the fires that are ongoing. It's working on the ongoing projects, and then also figuring out a way to advance your priorities while you're doing all of that.
So I know that in District 2, housing is a priority. Would you say that is also the priority of the other districts, or are they different?
Yeah, it's in 2020 we ran a bunch of initiatives, and they mostly all passed. In 2022 we ran another 5.
Okay.
And there's things around raising the minimum wage, Airbnbs. There's a cruise ship one. There's one other one, but rent control was the only one that won. And it is because people are really seeing the effects of trying to find an apartment or a place to live in Portland. And for parents, that means that their kids they want to live in the same city as their kids. Their kids want to live in Portland, and it's just completely unfeasible. The market rate is very high. So I think it is a common denominator that people are feeling this crunch, and it's so obvious that we need to be taking action around it.
Okay. So Wes, how long is your term as city councilor?
3 years.
Oh, okay.
So I just started in January, so it will be coming up in, 2027, I believe.
Okay. What would you say is the greatest opportunity of this particular role?
It's a chance to represent your constituents. And District 2 has been a solidly working class, very diverse community of tenants. And historically, that has been just such a bastion of this is what Portland stands for. It stands for its workers. The votes always go that way. It's a very strong district. And being able to be a strong voice and to have that opportunity to try to bring it together, whether that's through block parties or just community events, and also, on the political stage, just making sure that that my constituents have a voice and are feeling part of a broader community.
So I want our students to really get a picture of how you go about this. So when you are reaching out to your constituents, what do you do? What has worked? Who's missing from that sort of group that you're trying to represent?
Running for office in this sort of neighborhood is it's so interesting because a big part of that, for me especially, it's the ground game, which is knocking doors and talking to voters. And that's really, that kind of outreach is how you get people involved and excited about the process. But, if you are in a place where none of the doorbells work, which is a lot of Parkside, it starts to get very interesting. It's like, how do you go and talk to tenants and have those conversations and make sure that they feel engaged? And it requires a lot of creativity and just sort of you get in the doors and you knock on them and people are like, how'd you get in here? And it's like, oh, I got in. Let's talk about rent. Let's talk about what's on your mind. And people can be a little bit put off at first, but they really get they really feel engaged, and they feel like they understand sort of the small scale of Portland politics and how much impact they as a constituent can have.
Yeah, okay, so as a resident of the city of Portland myself, who is at the moment completely confused by the political arena and would probably rather just check out, what is the one thing that we could do to become a little bit more engaged, like at the local level? Like, where would we even start?
That is an excellent question, and I wish I had a great answer for you. Historically, I've been told to, go to committee meetings, and I think people should do that. I personally can't tell you you're going to have a good time. And this is one of the challenges of being a counselor. I think, one of the reasons I'm doing this and one of the reasons I want to be doing more outreach is I think Portland politics is so interesting. And I think that there are so many people, and you really get to understand the city once you understand that. And being able to show people and tell people about what's going on so that they can start to have a memory of the different votes that are had, the different things that are going on. That's important. So, you can just read the paper, which is definitely something to do. You can watch city council meetings, which, if you want to do that, go with God. But it really is on public officials to make that accessible and make people care about what's going on.
Yes, okay. I'm going to talk to you like the social worker that I'm trained as now.
Yeah, please.
Let's overcome these obstacles, because I actually have gone to the city website and tried to find a link to a public meeting. And I will say that to 90% of the people, good luck if they figure out how to log in and click on the link during that time. And okay, so what other ways if somebody's watching tonight, if they wanted to learn more about what's happening politically in our community, what else could they do? And occasionally I will drive by a sign, like, there's gonna be a public meeting.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But honestly, if I hadn't noticed it,
Yep.
It would be very, very difficult. It is difficult to access. Is there a way, like, do you guys ever go to just like the library or the park or the places where we are already, the public spaces where we are already at, where we could just make contact? How else would someone?
There's certainly nothing in the rules that requires us to do that. But for me, just as out of self-preservation, it's a really big priority to figure out how I can be doing that. And I've been spending the last couple of months getting my bearings, because the email load is wild, and just like making sure I'm getting the meetings and balancing that with my day job. But that's not an excuse for not being available. So, moving into the summer, it is, how can we have community events? How can we have block parties? How can I have sort of town halls, or just make it so that people feel that they can ask questions that maybe they think they're stupid, but there are so many things that go on in the city that seem like they should be obvious, and they simply are not.
Right.
And there are a lot of good reasons for that, but also that doesn't mean, and when I say good reasons, there's a really good reason that the city website is so bad. It's not good enough, but it is, it's a problem that I have asked about, and I was like, okay, I guess that's just the way it is. But that doesn't mean that as officials we can't be doing everything we can to make sure people feel like they know what's going on in the city.
Right. And I do appreciate you saying, and I want to amplify that, you have a day job as well. And so I don't think that when we look at politicians, we always recognize who also has additional workloads and who, like, this is their sole focus, and we expect that they'll hear us, they'll advocate for us, they'll fight for us, and they'll make change. So we're gonna just go on a short break there, but I appreciate that, Wes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wes, so how long have you been in Portland?
I've been here for about a decade or so.
And where, if you don't mind me asking, where did you come from? Where did you move from?
I grew up in Richmond and then moved to Topsom, so very nearby, and then I went to college up in Orono. So I have not strayed very far.
Yeah. How would you say, and maybe, you don't know this, but how would you say the cost of living in Portland compares to maybe some other major cities?
We are basically neck and neck with Boston. Okay. And in terms of wages, I think people are feeling the crunch even more than in a lot of other spots because wages have sort of stagnated, and we have been trying to, raise those. But every time Portland gets on a list of best places to work from home, I'm just like, please, not again, because there are so many people moving in that, and we love to have people moving in, but they can afford these really expensive apartments, and that creates this need and market for expensive apartments that is being gobbled up. And meanwhile, we have people that really need affordable housing, and that affordable housing just isn't being built because that's not what's the most profitable to be made. And there are all these different factors that are really coming together to make it so that it's harder and harder for working class people and families to live here because things are getting more expensive, not just in housing, obviously, but look at the state of the world, everything's getting more expensive. And it's really important for me to try to do the small part that I have to try to alleviate that in some way. And for me, that's mostly housing.
Okay. So that's really interesting. I want to take a beat a little bit from housing and
Sure.
talk about maybe some things that I've noticed in this area. So there's a lot of businesses that are sort of changing. Do you have any insight into what's going on there? Many places are closing, new places are opening up. Even what used to be the public market was rented out by, I want to say, an insurance company or something. And now I've noticed, I walk by there every day, that it's empty. So do you have any idea what's going on there?
So I can talk about the public market specifically, the old public market building. I actually used to work in a company that was there. It wasn't insurance, it was software.
Okay.
But it actually got bought by Maine Public. So
what is that, Maine Public?
Maine Public, like television and radio.
Oh,
so that's,
interesting.
I would say that's an improvement.
Yes.
And they're apparently going to have live shows. I miss the old public market so much.
So much.
It was like a really magical spot. And I went there in high school. So I have a very fond memory of it, probably a little unrealistic, but yeah, it's been interesting, and I think part of it is due to, again, it is property costs, and we have been looking at how can we do vacancy fees for these empty storefronts to make it so that it is not more profitable just to hang on to a vacant storefront than it is to rent it out to someone. And it's been hard, that businesses are there to meet the market, but I really, really miss having a grocery store on Congress.
Yes.
Paul's used to be there, and it's not there anymore. And, I do think going forward into council, it would be interesting to try to look at how can we make sure that we are creating easy ways for people to get access to food and the basic needs.
Right.
And how can we incentivize that?
Right. I think Portland's such a unique city. I'm trying to put my finger on why, and I have all these thoughts as to why. What do you like about Portland?
Portland kind of thinks of itself as a city, but it's really just it's a big town. It's the biggest city in Maine, and it is technically a city. But I think I looked it up. We're like the 575th biggest city in the country.
Interesting.
Yeah, we are. But that makes it so that we have an outsized impact, and there are still a lot of people here, and it just makes it so the politics is so much more interesting because I know basically all the main players, and that doesn't mean I like all of them, and
right.
They definitely don't all like me, but I know a face and a name, and it's much more. It's much more easy to hold in your head of this is what's going on in the city and this is why things are the way they are, especially, as you get more involved and you get to learn the names and sort of the history and the beefs. And that right there, and the fact, again, we've got Congress Street, and Congress Street, I know a lot of the tourists come to the Old Port and Commercial Street, but Congress Street for me, it's like, that is
the heart.
That's the main street of the city,
Yeah.
and not a lot of other, largest cities in the state have such a clear main street, and Congress Street for me like really exemplifies like what I love about the city, as well as its issues. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I also can't name exactly what's unique about Portland, but
Yeah.
I do love it.
Yeah, I love riding my bike through Portland.
Yes.
And
It could be safer.
Oh.
It could be safer. We're working on that, but
yeah,
Yeah.
it could be safer. What are some initiatives around biking that?
so Portland just
Interesting.
passed Vision Zero,
Okay.
and Vision Zero is it means vision for zero traffic fatalities. So that means driver, pedestrian, bike, anything on a public road, and it means looking at places where we have had accidents, and how can we what infrastructure can we put in to improve that and make it so things are safe. And that's like a huge priority, and I'm really, really hopeful for where that's going to lead Portland, and its pedestrians and bikers and bus riders, going into the next few decades.
Yeah, that's powerful and interesting. I'm really excited to learn more about that, honestly. And also an issue that other cities have very creatively faced, and so maybe that's going to be my end to understanding Portland politics.
It is the transit world is
Yes.
It is fascinating and so complex in its own ecosystem of its own, and I do really recommend getting involved, because there are a lot of organizations like Pedestrian Bike Advisory Committee. If you want an in, that's your in.
That's our in.
Yeah.
Okay. So Wes, I know we were discussing transportation, and we started with biking, which honestly is very interesting, because to be in the city, or really we need a good, solid transportation system. And I want to put in a plug out there for our bus drivers. And I remember hearing some conversations around maybe connecting us better with South Portland, or do you know anything about that? Can you tell us a bit about transportation?
So Greater Portland Metro is, I think it's technically quasi-municipal. It is its own organization, but a city councilor sits on the board, and they're great. They've got such a vision, and we recently merged with South Portland. So rather than having two different bus lines, we are now one bus line, and it's saving everyone money.
Incredible.
And it's so important, because we have such a large metro area, and I would kind of like to see it expanded. And for me, it's so nice, because I honestly have very little idea what I'm doing, and it's so nice to just be like, I know that they are on top of it, and I can just go to them and say, how can I help you, make sure that we are servicing, as far as possible. I would love to have GP Metro have a bus out to Lewiston and Auburn. That would be
Yes.
incredible.
Yes, actually, my car was recently totaled, so that would be very helpful right now. I'm trying to maintain my living to 10 minutes from where I am, so I can take the bus or ride my bike. But yeah, I recently saw a bus in front of the library that was going up to Lewiston.
It's called the LAP, the Lewiston Auburn Portland bus. And I've got friends that ride it. I've got friends that actually take it from Lewiston Auburn. They just moved there. They come down to trivia.
That's interesting.
It's great that it's there. There are some things that could be improved about it. It's outsourced. It's run by a company out of Ohio.
Okay.
But it's great that we are taking that initial step.
Okay.
I would, obviously we'd love to start talking about rail at some point. But buses are where it starts. And yeah, bringing that together and making it so you don't necessarily need a car to live in Maine or Portland just to start would be such a great step.
Yeah, so absolutely. That's incredible to hear. And maybe the LAP, like you said, is a pilot.
It is specifically a pilot program.
Yeah, I see. So that will be interesting to see. I hope it continues to to grow, because we really do need that, especially between like here in Westbrook, here in South Portland, and anyways. So City Councilman, is it difficult, would you say, to advocate for your district, or how has that experience been? I'm sure you have to share the floor with
for
a lot
sure.
of people.
And I mean, Portland's such a small town, so every issue is sort of interconnected. And I'm on finance, so that does mean like there's not a lot of pork to go around. But it does mean figuring out what constituents need and how we can make sure that those projects are specifically funded. And that's been a challenge, and it's definitely been a learning curve, and I feel much more ready for next year. And we're not done with the budget yet, but we're working on it. And yeah, like it really, so much of it comes down to money, but also, again, a lot of the problems that my constituents face are faced by people, working class folks around the country, but definitely around the city.
Right. And okay, so beyond housing, right, and rent control, obviously, and just the cost of living, what are some other really important needs that Portland has right now?
For me, it really, really distills down to transit and then housing, because those are, that is something that everyone faces, whether it's driving around looking for a parking spot because you need to have a car because you can't necessarily get to work on time, and trying to figure out all the different factors that come into that, and then, housing, which I've talked a lot about. And then, obviously looking at jobs and making sure people have jobs, and making sure that city infrastructure is well staffed and well funded, because that is what people are paying for. And I think it's really important that they are able to see that their tax dollars are going into something that is tangible and reliable, and makes you feel proud to live in the city.
Yeah, absolutely. Who would you say are our most vulnerable populations right now in Portland?
Right now, I mean, it's obviously it is our new Mainers, our recent immigrants, or just our immigrants in general. Black and brown people obviously are under threat from the country, and it's figuring that out and making sure that we have a robust, even if it's outside of government, although the government should be there to help, but building a community that can rely on each other and trust each other and look out for each other is really important. And it's important for me to figure out how I can use this position, even if it doesn't necessarily mean I'm using like the power that has been vested in me by the Constitution or whatever, but how I can make those connections and make sure that people know each other and can come to each other in a time of crisis, and protect each other.
That's really great to hear. And that is probably the greatest need, is to have neighbors we can trust.
Yes.
Even when perhaps there's these ripples of threats out there that are difficult, when when you can go to bed at night and know that you can trust your neighbor. I think that makes a big difference. So you're just at the beginning of your term, so that's exciting. There's a lot of work.
Well, steep learning curve.
Yeah. How has your partner responded to this new dynamic in your relationship?
Honestly, it's like pretty similar. It may even be less meetings. I've just been doing like campaigns and politics stuff for so long that it's always just like, yeah, babe, I've got another meeting. She's like, all right, she's playing Stardew Valley or whatever. She's fine. We're both. She knows that this is the kind of stuff that I'm into, and this is essentially my hobby. She's very supportive. We love my wife, obviously, and she's very good at just like, yeah, sure, like that is how we're going to spend our evening, and then on Fridays, maybe we hang out and watch a movie or something.
I love it. I appreciate you speaking with me tonight about your role, and it's been a pleasure just getting to know you a little bit better. And I am curious. I'm going to explore some of the things that you've brought up. So I want to thank our audience for joining us tonight. If you're watching this video, again, it's being produced by our students at the Boys and Girls Club, but we would like to invite you to the Portland Media Center studios and see if there's something you can produce. A lot of people don't realize that we have this incredible resource in our community at our disposal, so we can really, really learn how to tell our stories and really bring those stories that are in our city to life. So please reach out at pmc@portlandmedia.org. We are right next to Mecca if you're walking by, or look us up online. Again, thank you. I'm Sandra Perez, and it's been a pleasure to be with you tonight. Thank you, Wes.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.